Hi everyone, welcome back into the studio. We're going to do a lesson. I'm going to paint the northern mockingbird. This is one of my daughter's, it is my daughter's favorite bird. I'm going to probably do it with some pyracantha berries. I have a couple of study photos here. I've kind of sketched my own here. I like his head going up this way, raised his tail. I like that type of excitement to them, guys. They're, I lived around these for a number of years, and they're really kind of fun. But I thought this would be great. And then I'll put some pyracantha berries and stuff like that download here. Those of you that are part of the membership of the channel, I'll put some final photos and everything in the on the community page, so you have some references and stuff. But I want to go down into my palette here first. Now, on my palette, now you notice that the white here is a little thicker, right? And the mockingbird has a lot of white on him, and so as I build the part of the bird forward here, I want my colors to get a little bit thicker. So I just go ahead and thicken the white out. So what I did was I put my white down here in the corner, and then I mixed in a little bit of open medium to it, about 30% or so open medium. That will make the whites dry just a bit slower. And then I add a little bit, just a tiny bit of the thickening until I get it. So this white is about twice as thick as, you can see it's got quite a loft. It's about twice as thick as my other colors are. So the open medium will help it stay wet for a long time. And then the thickening, as I'm building colors onto the bird, that little bit of thicker white helps. This is something that I do a lot in portraits. I do it sometimes on flowers. So if you feel, if you're working on something and you get towards the end of the painting, it's nice to have some of those textures, those thicker colors stand out a little bit more proud of the surface, and that gives a little bit more interest. So it's thickening it up is a nice thing to do. Okay, so this is a board here. I've given it one coat of the canvas prep medium. It is 16 inches this way. 14 inches this way. You can certainly do it on a 16 by 12 or any other size of board that you have. He fits. I made it just a little bit longer this way than height-wise. You could put it on a square because he is just a little bit longer than he is high. So his body shape will match that pretty well. And let's get into it, okay? So I do also have out Sapphire. This is one of my favorite colors to work with when I do birds and adding blues and stuff into the background. I'm going to take my big old brush and some dirty water here with it has a little bit of beige in it still from my last painting. I'm going to take some blue and a little bit of this burnt sienna, which is what I really like. And I'm not going to mix it up real well. I'm just going to use some water in it. I do this sometimes on flowers. And I grab this, and I'm just going to pull this across. This is basically going to be a toning gray for the board here. And I'll push some of this in. Then let's pick up a little heavier color, a little more blue, a little more the burnt sienna, and a little bit of water, a little heavier, right down into some of this here. I like that. Down low, maybe a bit more of the burnt siennas down here. And I just want to create some movement back down through here. Maybe up at the top up there, a little bit heavier into the blue here. This will be pretty here. And I love brush marks and movement and stuff, so I want to just build on that a bit here. Here we go. That's nice. Just get a nice casual movement through there. And I like broken edges. I like the feeling of the impressionism of it. So, and let's get a little heavier. This will be nice. We'll put some of this burnt sienna and stuff back in through here for back pyracantha berries and stuff. So we'll just drop a little bit of that. That looks pretty good. Makes a nice little base for him here. Just tap it around a little bit, create some extra interest and stuff. I like that kind of stuff. Okay, and So heavier though, right in around the area of him. And we'll probably put some more blues and stuff like that, but just something I'm concentrating. Heavier color here, heavier colors of the blues around him. If you get too much into something, I like this, but you could wipe it out if you want to. All right, let's go in and let's just start blocking in some of his colors. And, you know, before we even do the pyracantha, let's start blocking in some of his colors. And he's going to have this kind of grays here and then more yellows and stuff. And so one of the things that an artist will do when I paint the birds, and a lot of you follow along with the birds and stuff with me, is that I will enhance the colors or bring up some of their contrast a little more than what they might actually have. It just gives the birds and stuff more character. So I'm going to take some of that blue and that burnt sienna here, a little heavier on the blue. It makes beautiful grays, and maybe a little open medium there, and some of my white to lighten that up. I want this gray, I want it slight, you know, I want it to model. So sometimes it'd be a little more blue, sometimes a little bit more warm, and we could even add maybe a little bit of the yellow oxide to it. So warmer. Let's start out with this warmer bit, and let's just come right down in here and push some of this color. And this is a number 10 flat, so I made him, the bird, about the size of what he is in real life, which is, he's a pretty good sized bird. He's actually maybe 90% of what he is. Maybe take a bit of the blue in here and add. See, I don't want to do a solid like color. I want to get some of these other colors in here. Over here, maybe a little burnt sienna and yellow that we see. Let's put a bit of that in there. Just model these colors in. This is the initial laying in of his colors, and I want him to be modeled. And you'll see up along the top of his head here, up along the beak, he gets a little warmer color. So let's just add a mark or two of that right in there. We'll get more specific. This is just for the blocking in, right? We'll get more specific. Let's just block some of that. Let's take some warmer grays in there. Model the color. That's what's going to make his feathers look really nice when you got all of this modeling of color going through there. So a lot of times, those of you that painted on the S101, I believe that was in the S102, the bird class, the online bird class, we painted all those different types of birds. And normally I look for an undertone of the bird when I start painting him. And this is a tone, most of it will paint out, but it starts our feeling for him. And so I'll go a little more blue back here. Just kind of scrub, let's just kind of scrub this color in a bit here. And if I want to thin out, I'm going to thin this out a bit, maybe a little extender. You could use water. And I'm just going to drag some of this through. Let's thin that up a little bit more. This is, when you get that dragging like that, that's called granulation. It means you don't have enough water to move the paint, water or moisture. And in this case, moisture, and I'm using the extender. So I'll just add a bit more. And to keep the tail, so you can see I've got a gray that kind of matches there. To keep the tail soft, I'm just going to wipe back a bit. And I've got my drawing a little heavy there. I don't know what I was pushing so hard with that pencil. But I'm just going to take some lighter gray and push some of that out. I don't want the drawing to come through. So I'll just... light white color, especially in acrylics, are very opaque. These whites are very opaque, so they'll take out any of your drawing if you get into a trouble. That your drawing might be a bit too heavy. That'll do it. Plus, he has little light tips out there anyway onto his tail, so we'll just add a bit. I working around and kind of making a plan. Let's just add some white here with my big brush. And then we'll go to a smaller brush and start painting him. Let's just add some of these bands here on his feathers, on his flight feathers here. And littler ones over here. We'll do more on these. This is just, don't want to get too much texture because we want to paint these into his body. We'll put some of that down, but that looks good. Let's come in with a medium. So I'll pick up some of this light, and you'll notice now, you'll feel the difference in the paint. The grays will feel very slippery, and the whites will have a lot of power to them, and they do, a lot of power. So, and as I come in here, you can see the whites can take over really easy because they're thicker, and I can just tap this in. So I start up where his whites are going to be pretty heavy, and I just push it in. And since it's so much, you'll see I get a lot of interest in it right away. So I'll pick up some more. Now, if I'm going to come down here, I don't want it to go quite so white, so I'll drop the value down with a little more gray. And I use just a corner of this big brush. And I'm just going to tap a little bit of that around to create some of the movement of that feathering in there. But this white is quite thick, and let me show you how it works. So if I come back here with a little bit thicker white, and I come here, it will immediately make the light feathers. See that? Just boom. And it's really easy to do because the white is thick color up onto the thinner base. So it's easy to build the feathers. Do you see that? And to give the look of the feathers here, because the whites are thicker. And so you have to be a little careful that you don't drag white everywhere, and we don't want to do that. But it does paint really nice when that white is a little thicker. You get a great look right away. Now, I can come back in. Let's just say I'll take this, most of that's dry, so let's just make a gray right here. Let me show you. A little bit more blue. I'll even add a little open medium to this, but a softer gray here. Just a soft gray. And see, I can come back and lift through some of that and take it out by using the brush here and just lifting off. So if you get too much white, you just come through and lift it off, right? So that works pretty well. Let's go a little bit more yellow right up here. Let's get a bit of that prettiness yellow back in there. He has just a whisper of that burnt sienna showing through there. So we'll do that. And we'll play here just a bit to get some of these different colors, a little yellow. Don't want to create a rainbow, but just some pretty colors. And let's take a soft little gray, thicker white, and just set some of those colors into his body there. See, that works really nice. Really, really nice. I'm going to take a little thicker white right up here, big brush, and really deposit quite heavy right up here, which is right up underneath his neck. And I'm looking for some of that to build up that whole neck area right in here, right in this area. So I'll go quite heavy. There we go. That works. And then we'll gray down a bit as we go across the back of his mantle here, back down in here. A little bit of the lighter gray. Back down here. Maybe a bit more blue into that gray. Here. Right in. Pretty colors. That's better. I'm going to leave a little bit of that blue there. That's kind of nice. Differences of these colors. That's kind of pretty. That's how it sets that up. And I'm going to want to pull some of these feathers out and across. I'll do that. But if any of your marks here are a little big, just take a bit of that gray. Just take some of it, soften it out. I'm going to soften this edge because it's a lost edge. So I just pull through, see, and I get rid of that texture there, and you get more of a receding edge. So let's rinse that brush because we're not going to use it for a while. Set that back. And let's go to, and you can go to like a smaller brush to work around his head. This is a number 4 flat, or a small filbert will work. I'm going to use this number 4 here, flat, and we'll come up and start some of the lighter feathering. Now this is a little bit dry. So what I'm going to do before I do it, because I like to paint the wet in the wet, I'm just going to push a little bit of gray and some of that color with a touch of extender. Now I use extender, so I've been concentrating a lot in my lessons when I talk to you guys all this year, a lot of my lessons, the difference between open medium and the extender. And it has everything to do with the consistency. So why am I using extender? So that my gray is weak. It doesn't have as much power as my white. I want my white to build up. Does that make sense? So I'll use extender on here so the extender is thin. The gray color that I'm putting on is thin, and my white color that I'm going to be putting on here is thicker. And so that will give me some of the interest that I'm looking for this, the modeling of the feathers, that light. So pull this gray down in there a bit, but you can see when I hit that white, it just kind of travels really quickly. There is a mark, and of course I've turned his head and stuff, so everything is different, but you know, we can kind of emulate that a bit just by taking, if you want it really dark, you can touch into a tiny bit of your blue, and boy, that is so powerful. Just a tiny bit of the phthalo. And let's just go ahead and add that in. So we'll add the line of the shadow line of his neck there. And we'll add a bit right in here, whiter bit there for his eye and to his beak there. And a little bit fading out to the side here, back behind. They get that band pulling through there. And let's just go ahead while we have this dark, burnt sienna and that blue, real dark. And just use the chisel of the brush here and drop in the top of his beak and the bottom of his beak here. There, like that. Okay. And I'm going to, of course, not done there yet, but we'll do a lot more. But just putting in a little bit of this color. I love this model. Like, see, I just hit that burnt sienna a little more. I just love that look. That's just so much character to a bird. And let's just lift off in here just a bit and create a little more feather. So see, I'm lifting off that thicker textured white to draw some lines of feathers. And then you can just softly travel that down through there. That just works nice. Let's build. So let's first start with the gray. We'll add some blue down here to my burnt sienna. Get a nice gray, a little bit lighter gray, but not too light. Mid-value, maybe around a 6 or a 7. And let's add some marks here of this gray right to him. Break this up a bit here. A few marks right in here. So you see, I like to pull and I push also with the brush this way. There we go. And I really like the surface to get a little sticky. So what happens after a time is the paint starts to dry up, and there's a good 5 minutes in there as the paint starts to dry, that it gets sticky. If I really want to do a lot of drawing, refining, all that kind of stuff, I let that paint get a little sticky, and it's really great to paint into, but you don't have much time because we didn't add that much stuff to it. So you've got to work a little fast and to get your feathering in. So you kind of have to have a plan what you're going to do. So now we're going to pull some of this feathering in here. Pull it down here, down this side a little bit. And then it'll turn here for it to pull out this way. Now, this brush is a little big for some of the detail I want to get on his face, so I'm going to add a little open medium to this. So I'm probably going to switch to a smaller one as well. but I want to get some of this larger look in here coming through there. That's pretty good. That looks, let's put just a bit of the larger right up here. So his beak will come into his head, and so he's slightly turned, so the center line of his head that you'd want to pop out, you'd leave a little bit of dark to that side. That helps his head turn. So we want to leave a little bit of that right there. And let's go slightly different on our gray. A little more blue here. Cooler, lighter, because we've got some blue up here. So let's add some of that blue, light blue gray in there. There, like that. So that works. So I'm going to rinse that brush, and I'm going to put that down the side here, and we're going to come and work some details in here. So I want to work some of the details of the shadow and the light. So this is my number 4 round. This is the brush I paint most birds with, a number 4 round. I'm going to take a darker color here, burnt sienna and blue. This is one of the darkest colors that I have on the painting here. I'm going to take and I'm going to point up this, and we're going to add the pupil to his eye. Sometimes in the birds I do this right away. Sometimes I'll paint their bodies and start to get a little feeling for him. You know, there's a lot of wildlife painters and stuff that say always start up there by the eyes. I don't always subscribe to that. I'm going to take this, since this is a little darker, I'll use this on the lower part of his beak. I'm going to add a few little lines right in here that's going to bring out that band that comes through his eye there. And he's almost like the northern shrike with that band that comes through. I'm going to blur that just a bit. So I just tap into it, and it blurs it, softens it out a bit. That looks better. And let's go into some soft grays. So burnt siennas, yellows, blues here. Let's just, and this thicker white. So we want to model this, but we don't want to mix it. Does that make sense? So we want some of the colors to come off a little different as we touch through here. So and we're going to build multiple times. So we'll start to feather him up here. Little marks. Just little tip, just the tip of this little brush. Just a tip. It's got a very soft tip. Use just the tip to start building the smaller feathers up and around his face. Here, around his beak. And down here. So I'm going to add a little more detail to him. Sometimes you see me paint these completely with the soft, and now I'm going to paint this guy a little bit more feathery with this one. So you see I'll make and as I move away from the fine little feathers that you'll find up and around his beak and face, I'll push down more with this brush and create some larger feathers on him. Let's pull some of this maybe back here a bit. Little mark of it. And you can blur some of that just with your finger or a small brush. Just blur that a bit. So sometimes I'll push up and back and see how it blurs it ever so slightly. And it keeps the marks really defined around his face. Now, he's got this really defined eye ring. Makes him look almost a little starey, because he's got a defined eye ring up and back, and up and bottom, excuse me, and round to the bottom here as well. And so I'll pop that in here. And some smaller little workings, little tiny touches up and around the fine points. And if you take or if you lose some of your darks, what I do is I just come back and forth with my light and my darks, because the darks will tap out and paint and add some of that interest in there as well. Sometimes a little extra sienna. And that's where I get the most interest, is going back and forth a few times with some of these featherings, with the lights and the darks. A little more burnt sienna into this. There we go. Lots of coloring on them. Wipe my brush and I'll pick up some thicker white. Right? Go. And we'll add a few more smaller marks. And these get textured too, so they stand out a little bit more. So a little bit of texture, just drag your brush there. And little taps to make the little points of the fine little feathers you find up around his beak. Here. There, like that. Let's take some more gray. Not quite as light. A little bit of gray mixed into this. And we'll pull some of the strokes here that set his face, his head with the feathers there. And that's maybe a touch too light, so it's not a problem. We just go back into it with some gray. I like the blue and the burnt sienna. Softer little gray here. We'll just pull back through that. Soften some of that light out here. There we go. And I painted too much into that band in front of his, behind his beak, in front of his eye. So I'll just go back and add some of that back in, see? And it really starts to look good when you go back and forth like this a bit. Really starts to look good, because you get all of these different kinds of layers of colors in there. And that works. Let's pull some of this around. Tap some of that. Let's take a lighter gray. When I use my colors thin like this, you know, they're gonna dry and you're gonna have to remix constantly, but I don't mind that. If you don't like doing that, just add some extender to it. But I constantly like to mix. So let's put a little lighter touch to the top part of his beak here. Okay, a little lighter touch, maybe a bit of the light on the dividing line there of his top of his beak to the bottom of his beak. A little bit of color there. A touch of detail. There. Like that. That's good. Maybe, you know, if I'm doing, you know, there's times that I paint really detailed birds, and one of them is the top of their beak tends to shine a bit, so I like to put a little bit of blue up there, and then I'll revisit my dark right through the center there. There we go. And it just makes such a nice beak for him. So let's get a little bit more of that blue, bluish gray. So we'll add this, we'll add a little bit of these siennas and stuff, but a little bit more blue up in it. So we got this warm, and if you look, he's got this warm undertone, but he's got this kind of blue, almost a little violet in this photo. So that would be fun. So we take a little quinacridone with the blue here. making almost a light little violet. That will add a few strokes too. Right in here, let some of that other gray come through, but we'll add a bit of the violet colors because that's where he's got a lot of pretty coloring like that. So down along his back, he gets a little bit of that violety blue. Right down through here. Right down like that. Pull that right down. Let that back edge stay very blurry. There. Now, we'll, of course, we got a lot more detail to do in there. I want to fix this line on the lower part of his beak to point it up a little bit more, a little cleaner. Hard for him to eat pyracanthus with his beak like that. Okay, so then we'll come in and let's put that, I'm going to use some Diarylide and some yellow oxide together and add that glowy yellow to his eye right in front of the pupil there. That glowy yellow that really comes from the Diarylide. We'll add some of that to the back. If you want it to go heavy, just tap up and down a bit. But yeah, it's a glowy little color. Glows a lot. And if you darken the iris or the pupil of his eye there, he'll glow even more. So let's just thin this gray out just a bit, this dark. Little extender or a little water, just so it flows better, and it'll allow you to do a little more detailing, rounding up of that iris there. There we go. And I'll take a few marks of that here, right up in front and through this area. Just a bit more here. And yeah, and he actually has a bit of that dark right next to that eye ring. Talk about making him starey, like he's staring out at everything. But he does. And yeah, we'll just add it. That's the bird. A little bit of light there. And tiny touch of the white for the catch light, tiny bit. Let's put the catch light right up here. That's even though it looks really small on my brush, when I get up to that iris, it's right on the front part of the iris there. We'll put the catch light, a little bit of the catch light there. And usually what I do is, because it's a little mark, I usually have to take some of it out with, and that's hard to see, but it's a real soft, gentle little catch light. I think I'm going to increase its mark just a touch here. Just ever little bit there. There we go. That catch light. Let's put just a touch more of the little marks on the eye ring there. So a little more detail, Sometimes I paint the birds with tremendous detail. Sometimes I just paint them very soft. And I like that. So I'm going to build now back up to my mottled and my white color. I'm going to build up through here a little bit more and some textures, which is one reason why I added that. Made it a little bit thicker so I could add a few little textures in there on this guy. And I'll go over to the softer violets right in here and kind of bring a little bit of those together. Some of those colors. And we need to have, I'm going to add some extender out here so the color sticks a bit for a while. Some blue and some burnt sienna and a little yellow, a little warmer gray, slightly different gray, and that's where a lot of his interest comes from, is all these different grays. let's pick up a mark of that light and reset that just a touch. There. There he is. It all depends on which way he's turned to the light, whether you get a lot of gray or some light on the top of that head there. I'm going to take some of this out, just a bit. But I love to leave this mottled because that's the interest that's in him. So I love to leave that little bit of mottled. Now, up into the front here, I love the, like you can barely see it on this guy. He gets all of the little feathers, and some of them turn out. So I'll do a little feathering, and that's really nice what this brush can do. Little points, little taps, little looks of the feathers and stuff there. And you can reduce some of the, let's take a touch of burnt sienna and the yellow, and just a little bit of the blue. Make a touch, just a little warmer color, and just add through marks, little marks. And these are the little, I call these the little sparks of color, when I'm doing landscapes or doing anything and stuff, little sparks of color come through. I like that. And it works really well. So I left all of that nice little detailing up there. I think I really want to see, he has a real glowy eye, so I'm going to add just a touch more of that Diarylide there. See how that just really pops his eye out. And if you don't like it, you don't have to do it, right? Yeah, so now let's model. So when I'm feathering and really thick feathering and stuff like I'm doing with this guy, I'll repeat back through some of these colors several times. As I leave the area of interest, which is that part of his head there, okay, I will go to a larger brush. This is my number 4. So I'll go back to my number 4. Here's some blues and some of these colors. And I'm going to work some of these grays a bit more right in here. And it's the back and forth through some of these colors that really make him look really nice. So the tiny bits of detail, let's add just a little bit of the shadow feathering there. A little color come out. See the color? Okay, a little bit there. Right there, yeah. Maybe just a bit of that burnt sienna right up in here. That's pretty wild little guy with that wild eye. And let's go burnt sienna, tiny bit of the blue again. Tiny bit. A little more burnt sienna. Just softly add a bit more of that line. Try not to breathe there, Dave. And so you see, I love to work this because every time you touch it, it's another little area of interest, right? Okay, so that looks pretty good down through there. Let's take some of our open medium. Now, open medium, I'm keeping the colors thicker right in here. So it's thicker. You'll feel the difference here. It's thicker right in there. I'm going to take some of my white, maybe a bit of that violet color into the gray here. And let's go back on his mantle here. There. Go a little, reach down here to the lighter. Now I added a lot of stuff there, so this color is wet, quite a bit wet. And let's just work him short. They're short marks because you're painting feathers, the look of feathers, right? Let's pick up a little more light, a little bit more. Lighten that puddle just a touch more. and add a few short marks, but leave, you know, you're going to get this as it pushes, you're going to get these highs and lows sometimes where the color moves the highs and lows, and leave those. That's giving it the look of feathers. Let's pull that back up. See? And then I can push and pull to give it more of a look of feather. And see how that happens there is when I push like that, I'm lifting the light off. So that light came right off of my finger there when I pushed it like that. And I've got nice definition there because my colors are so thick, especially that white that I thickened out. If the colors are too thin, they just push around and bleed out, and you don't get that almost marbly look to it. Does that make sense? And I tried for years with the acrylics to get that, and I realized I have to make my acrylics thicker, like, you know, almost like day-old oils to get that look, and I got that look just by adding the thickening agent to it. Here we go. A little bit of that right there. That's kind of nice. Let's build a little bit more of that chin stroke there. There. Bring him up a bit more, some of that gray through there. See, it's just, no matter how many times I do it, I still love coming back through there and building and building. I just love that. And when I have that thick white, I can do that really easy. Here, let's put some of that thick white right through there. Bit more. So you see, you get this height. It's almost like a marbling to it. Light touch. Push that through. And if I need to, I can push and bring the shadow back, because the shadow's underneath there. Does that make sense? Right? And you can push back and forth. Now that we've taken the time to put all that color underneath there, just push that softer. There we go. Yeah. So he's technically really gray up on the top. He's a little bit too light, I think, up on the top, even though I do like his color. So we'll put a little more gray back down in here. Maybe a bit more of the blue into that. And again, I like to change colors, modeling. There we go. That's kind of nice. Let's put a bit of that color right through to his tail here. And we'll just streak it a bit. There we go. But see, I like that warmer burnt sienna in there, so a little more sienna sometimes, just to break up that blue. Yeah, that looks good with that. These marks right here are a little stiff, so I'm just going to blur them just a bit. See, it's still wet because I added all of that open medium in there, so that's still wet in there. Let's push that gray up a little higher, right up into his feathers there. So since I don't have one really with his head turned back here, I'm kind of winging it. Okay, yeah. So that looks pretty good. Now let's put up a lighter stroke right down underneath his chin. A little bit of that gray. And let's go with a thicker, whiter stroke. There we go. That's kind of nice. That causes his head really to stand, makes those feathers come up on top. That works really well there, I think. We'll add some of this gray right in here that is going to make his coverts and his secondary feathers here. We'll add those in. And now he's got to get to the darkness there. So we'll take some burnt sienna and some blue. Make our darks, right? First we'll start with these top ones right here. Paint right up to that light edge. streak this a little bit so you'll get some burnt sienna and some blue, right? Now, if you got it too high, too much, you can pull down. Take your finger, push a little bit and pull down, and you'll pull that thicker white down. See? And that just gives you that, just pull and lift off, and you get that look of the feathers. Yeah. Take some confidence, okay? Now, let's pull up, right up into here to give the look of these feathers right here on the wing. And then we'll let this fade away, going up and fading away there into his body, right? Right? And you can add more colors in there. I really kind of like the looks of it because it got blue and burnt sienna. And see, it's not real mixed on my palette here. They're coming off different on my brush because I didn't mix it too long on, and I'm liking that. So let's get this tip right here and pull this right up into here. Now, it doesn't go all the way there. You're going to get this granulation, and that's the thickness of it. You could thin it just a little bit, but if you thin it, you'll lose some of that color, that modeling of that color, you know, like the marbleizing, because the colors will bleed a little. Does that make sense? So, you know, but here, I mean, in the outside part of the wing, I'm going to let that kind of happen. Just streak this, let it happen a bit because I'm out away from my center of interest. I'm just going to pull through, right? And let's put a bit more blue into that so it's darker right here. And push that darker bit, a little more dark. Wipe that. That's a little blue, but I'm going to leave it because I'm trying to do that more now. Leave stuff a little bit more, you know. And let's add some open medium. Open medium will keep the colors thicker, and so they'll maintain their streaking a bit. So see how that started out blue and picked up the burnt sienna there? That's because of the open medium, the thicker color. See how I got that variation? It's not just one color. It's got a variation there to the tail. See the blue to the burnt sienna. That happened because I loaded the brush with the open medium, and it keeps the colors thicker so that they don't intermix too much. Does that make sense? They've both got power and they don't mix, right? Yeah. So we'll take just a bit of a gray here for his little mark on his tail. We'll just give him a little bit there. Yeah. So I'm filming this a little bit later in the afternoon, and my dogs are over there just snoring, so the mics may pick it up. It's not me, it's my dogs. So, okay, so there's just a touch of burnt sienna blue back here on this wing. Okay. And yeah, we're gonna just a little touch there. That looks pretty good. And I'm gonna thin this again, burnt sienna and blue, so I get more of a line because I'm gonna do his legs here. So I don't want too much power to the color. I'll just blur that down a bit. We'll just tap a bit here. There we go. And yeah, that looks pretty good. And maybe a bit of this, I'll just go ahead and use the thin stuff so I get a touch of drawing. Draw the edge of that wing there. Here, down. Draw the edge of that wing. Now I could reinforce those whites a bit more that I see there, but it's very casual. It's got the job done, so I think I'm going to leave it like that. I'm going to take a lighter little gray, which I like on this wing, some of the mantle and coverts here, pulling down slightly onto the wing this way. So I'm going to get some of that movement in there like that. I like that. And I do, you know, those of you who paint birds with me, you know I do like to tuck that wing. It's one of my things I like to do. I like to tuck that wing up into that mantle there really well. And then drag, one of my signatures is, and he has it here, dragging a few of the light hairs of the body up over that wing as it sets in there. So I like a few little drag marks of these feathery little looks right here, right over, setting that wing and that together. So that worked out pretty well. And I'm just going to add a bit more right up here, a little burnt sienna there, and right in there like that. Let those just kind of fade away. I want a few more marks, but see, as I leave the body the center of the interest of his head, I really do want to reduce down some of the feathering, you know, that you see in here. I don't want to get all that detail because I want the viewer to come up here by his face. So I'm going to add a bit more of that warmth right up there. Just a few more color details, brush marks, color marks. Just keep your eye right up there by him. Okay, so now you saw when you thought I was nuts when I first put up all of this color, but see, he sets some of this back and you got all this lovely interest and stuff here. So we got these pyracantha berries and stuff that we want to do. I'm going to take a bit of my blue burnt sienna and I'm going to just drag through. That was my number 4. I don't really like to paint with that small of a brush when I'm going for casual looks. So I'm going to go back up to my 10 here. And I actually like to make small marks like that with a larger brush. And I want to just loosen some of this movement up here. I'm going to add a little bit more burnt sienna here. Widen some of this out. Get some stuff here. Some stuff going on. And we'll build them mostly right around into this area and stuff here. So let's take some red and some burnt sienna. Let's come over here. Okay. I'm going to add some open medium. This is going to help not only with transparency, but build my colors a little thicker. So I'm going to build areas of the berries here first and let it kind of fade out like this. So tapping kind of heavy, like right up here. He's landed right in a good spot to eat some of these things. And then then we let it fade out, right? So we'll maybe make 1 or 2 big ones here. Let some of this just kind of fade out. Now, you know, in one photo I saw there was a whole bunch of spent ones around, you know, with the brownish kind of shells around them. That would be neat to do as well. But I'm just going to basically do this kind of very impressionistic here. And let's get a little more open medium here into this rather than pick up more paint. This will make it a touch more transparent. Open medium is just great for getting that transparency in there. Push him into some of it so he doesn't look like they're surrounding him. Push some of them right in back behind him, right? So that he looks like he's sitting there with them. And then a few more little transparent things going on down here, fading off like that. Now, let's go in and let's take some burnt sienna and some red violet. This will be the shadow. So Now what we have to do is think shadows of the berries. We're not painting the berries yet. I'm thinking them as a clump right now. So some shadows, and of course the deepest of the shadows will be right in and around him, because we don't want to, because this is a contrast color and we don't want it to appear all over the painting. We want it to kind of start fading away. Does that make sense? Okay. Back here. So just a few little marks to say you did it, but don't carry outside here. Don't do very much. Let it start to just tap. You can also add a little more open medium so that those taps and stuff stay more soft. Now, before we go to highlights, let's grab some of our pine green, and I'll add some open medium right into some of that red so we get some toning there. Smaller little leaves, and I like to put them on and pull them so they get some transparency. You might want to have a yellower one. Just put some yellow in it. Diarylide looks amazing with these as well. That'll make some softer ones here. Pull through. Wipe your hand here, Dave. Pull through. Keep them kind of soft. Maybe a bit of extender here. Thin this out even more. Or a bit of Diarylide, different yellow. Thin it. I do like the open medium to really start to help get transparency here. Little marks, little leaves and stuff coming through, right? And maybe a bit of the dark right up here by him. That helps him come up in front of that. Let's put another little dark one right back in here. So we'll build little ovals. That's what they are. Little ovals. And I love the tap push through, so that, because it, especially like when I'm in some of those red areas there, it gives this transparency, translucency to it. That's really quite nice. There. But yeah, you can see over here with how some of that looks. So let's just add out and get a little transparent. Some of these colors, some of the marks that are in here, I'm just, we'll leave a little burnt sienna, a little yellow. Some of them right around in here. I will just quickly do it because I like the impressionism of it. I don't like it to get too heavy. I love impressionism. So, you know what it is. It's pyracantha kind of berries. So we don't need to get too much detail. So I start to just do this, the brushwork coming out through here. You don't need too much more than that. And, you've got little stems, all kinds of little stems and stuff around through here. You can just use the chisel of this brush, this bigger brush, or the little corner, just the corner of the brush, and start, or you can use a little liner brush. Now, I don't always, when I'm doing a real casual painting or impressionistic painting, I don't always like to use a liner brush because that it makes them too perfect. I like the blurry edge of it all. So here you got that. Now, so we have some of this lovely color running in there, a little more dark brown kind of color in some of this. Let's thin this. Thin gives me more control to make a point or an edge and just draw a few little marks. And I'll just pull through those. just to say like little stems and stuff through here. There we go. Yeah, a few little marks. That's nice. You don't need a ton of them, just a few of them. Here, there, pull that through. Now, I'm going to go back to my number 4, my smaller number 4 here, and I'm actually going to paint a few berries. So I'm going to start out first with some Naphthol Red Light. Maybe I love Naphthol Red Light and mottled with some Diarylide. That's a beautiful little color. And I'm just going to come in and pull out some little half C shapes. You know, like you're making the letter C here to the top. Let's pull out one right here. We'll cover up his leg so I don't have to paint his foot. And so sometimes I just kind of feel what the shape is in there. I don't have to have a, you know, I'm not painting a perfect little berry. And sometimes you just kind of put it like this, all of these really close together. Out as you get further out, we're going to let all of this go away. So just a few little lights here, just tap through and create like the look of little berries. You don't have to be, you're putting the color on more than anything else. That's what the thing is. We want the berries in here. We want the color out here. Okay, so just a bit of the color out here. That's what we want. This is the impression of it, right? Boom. The impression of those out there. And a little heavier right up in here. There we go. Let's get a little more Diarylide, a little bit of that Naphthol Red Light. A few little heavier ones here. Okay. Now, as you add more white, you'll get pink unless you add more Diarylide, maybe even a touch of the Hansa here, and you head it over. You let that do a lot of the lightening for you. You'll go a little orange, but that's what happens. And then you add a tiny bit of white to it, and it keeps it from getting pink. See, it gets these brighter yellow oranges. So white you add last. Add your Diarylide and your Hansa and start building some of those colors here. And we'll make little half circles here, little lights, ideas. Making the, yes, the Northern Mockingbird on his pyracantha berries. Kind of pretty here. So when you want to make something, you know, really red, you got to start to shift it towards the yellows first for you, or you'll get too pink. Now we can pick up some more yellow and red, and then we'll add some white and see, we'll go even a little bit lighter, and we'll start tapping in some of those smaller little lights, shines here. Here we go. Nice texture. Let it stand proud of the surface here. And if you get too much on it, you know, you can take a real pretty, you can take the red and take some of it out. You could add a little bit of the shadow, but see, the red can come in now and really do a nice job of, you know, give it a stronger red here. And then you can come back with the shadow again. See, you get some nice strong, and then some of the red violet and a little bit of that quinacridone. Quinacridone is really pretty. Just little touches of that into those shadows. Let it fall, or let some of it come right up by that highlight, and you get a really powerful little contrast. Got to be careful though, because you don't want it to outdo the Mockingbird there. Now normally I would, come in with and start looking for ways and stuff to harmonize. So I think we did a pretty good job of capturing just the impression of those berries. I might take some of this darker and push in a bit, and maybe a bit more red. There we go. That's just more contrast right in there. That's pretty good. Yeah, join that up. Now, I am going to kind of finish him up here because I really like him. And boy, we've done this just in over an hour. Not too bad. To kind of work this now just a bit. We're going to start the harmony, okay? Putting that, our harmony is we're carrying colors that are common to other things. So in other words, what I always say when I teach the online color theory class and stuff, one of the things I drilled into all the lessons was when you express a color, then move a color. So we've expressed some of this red and stuff. So while we have this, what we do is we thin it out, soften it out, thin it out. And you're going to touch it through the painting, So, yeah, so the Mockingbird here will get a few touches of it here and there because that's what will happen also in nature. But the artist in us has to express it a little bit more. We take the colors and we express it just a little bit more, and so you'll see that, so that some of those colors come through. Then we'll take the blues and the grays. I really like the blues and stuff from the Mockingbird. And we'll drop it down here and see what happens. See those blues come right down. There's something about the blues. And those of you that paint westerns with me, I'm always talking about adding the blues to the cool side of the object that you're painting, a cow or whatever, because it just adds that coolness, that beauty to it. The sky of our landscape. We'll put a few through here, through some of this. Yeah, that's pretty. You don't need tons of it, but it's because it starts to get pretty, and then you'll start adding more and more of it, and then you'll say, what the heck did I do? And so a few little marks of it through the painting here as well, onto some of the leaves. That looks good. A little bit of those blues just cause him to sing. But I was teaching this morning to mentoring a younger artist here in town, and we were working on, he was painting a lion, and he came over and had a problem, and it was working on the receding edge of the lion, how the back of his mane making it recede back to the background. And I said, basically it's harmony. It's like taking these blues and putting them down through here. It's a harmony, and it adds that interest. But what I said to him is, like, to make something recede is that you can always take the color of the object and then the color of the background and make one right in between and then add that to it. So there's a bunch of different ways in which you can do this, and they're fun, and that's what keeps the painting really lively too, is not only the harmony but the interest of it. So Yeah, that just works nice there. Now, let's, so we have some of that blue. So let's not forget to add a mark or two of that blue right into him as well. So that carries, see, that color carries, see? Carries up and into him. So we'll make sure he gets it as well. Right? A little bit of white and that blue there. That's nice. Now, so I like everything that's going with his head, but some of this movement there stops his head from really coming forward. So we're going to smooth it out and increase our blue just a bit. And I don't want a lot of interest. I want this to flatten out. So instead of using open medium, I'm going to thin it with extender because I want this to kind of flatten out a little bit. And I want to work this around him and up through here like that. Okay, I might put some more dark on the back side of his head there, but let's just see. First, let's just take this out a bit, maybe down through some of this through here. This is the impressionism that I just love. Right through that, right? And maybe a bit more of the gray, just a bit of burnt sienna in that. This helps him pop forward a bit in the painting, even though he doesn't need too much help, just a little bit. A little bit. Bit of lighter color. I do, those of you that, paint birds with me, I do like to put the sky and some of that blue. It's kind of my signature on them. I don't always do it, but boy, a lot of times I do. I like it. I like it. I like that on them. And I like it to show up in a few other little areas. There. That's pretty good. Now, I'm going to take my smaller, almost done, take my smaller burnt sienna, a little bit of the blue-gray here, bit of the white, and I'm just going to use this to lift it the outside line of his head here. I'm going to redo his head. I want a bit more contrast coming up and around on the top of his head. Maybe a little bit lighter blue into that. That's a little bit too much burnt sienna. Don't breathe, pull through. Blur that out. And see if since it's all wet, I can pull through it and reduce its impact by still leaving a little bit of that color. Just a touch of that color. That's what I like. A bit more of the brown. We'll do it again. So while that's wet, I just drag my finger, because this is a lost edge. So I just drag my finger. I just wanted to see a touch more color there. Let's put touch more color there. That's good. And maybe that warmer yellow, a touch more warmer yellow. Right back. And remember, we accentuate their colors a bit. That looks pretty good. Yeah. So he's got those glowy little yellow eyes. I like that. I'm going to maybe make a couple more powerful statements, maybe some of that yellow in there. Power statement. Boy, I just love painting with this thicker white like that. Being the thickest color, it grabs the interest. Couple more statements there. Don't want to take out all that modeling, but a few statements. As a matter of fact, it might be safer to do this with my number 4 round here. Just a few marks of it. That's better. Just, I like that, you know, sometimes I like a line of light to pull down through them, like you're hitting the front of their body with the light. And I'm kind of feeling I want to do that on him. So a little thicker, just a touch of that yellow in there. A little bit of this thicker white. There we go. See, that's that sunshine coming right down through his body. Right there. And I like that on him. Yeah, that's good. I could lighten a bit there. You know, think about maybe lightening up, but this brings a lot of interest out here, so I'm going to look at it here. Maybe no more than that. Couple little touches. I don't want those wings to become the center of interest. And you have to be careful because they're a light on a dark color. And so they'll grab interest really quick. So that's probably enough. Maybe a little touch of the light out there. Just we could put in the lines for his primaries here. But it is a lot of interest there. And I think that's probably enough for him. I kind of like that. Maybe a nice little Diarylide with some of that white. So it's a little bit glowy. Nice little light right up into the front here. Here. Yeah, a little glowy. And you see kind of a little yellow there. You're the artist. You're to expand it. Does that make sense? That's what makes a beautiful painting as opposed to a photo, is you enhance the colors sometimes. All right, so there you go. I like that. Oh, look at that. That's blue's just kind of dripping right through there. Tells you how wet I had that. So we'll get rid of the drip. I kind of like that. I don't want to darken his head anymore or anything. I like that, how all of that sits. I might loosen up his, well, sometimes, you know, when the feathering here, let's do that. We'll get some of these grays. We'll just model through some of these blues and grays here. Loosen up right along the edge right here, just a touch more. You know, so it's not perfectly round, so pull some out, and that makes him a little more fluffier and feathery, if that makes sense. And that's what I want to do. And you'll see, like on the back of his leg, sometimes you get a few like little marks that are the feathers that, you know, sometimes you get like his built up of his thigh, the look of his thigh and stuff. So how much you add into that's up to you. I kind of like that. Maybe a soft yellow, a few soft yellow lights, marks, model that. And that's enough on him. I think that's enough. So you could add little tiny shines if you want. I wouldn't get too carried away. Maybe a little light yellow and white, a couple little shines up onto the very forward ones. Let the rest just kind of fade out, and don't do anything. A little Diarylide white like we put right up there. That looks really nice. Little catch lights on a few of them. Little shines. That's enough. Boom. There you go. Okay, he's a lot of fun. But try this thicker white. And, you know, when you're done with this, you can put them in little containers. If you're going to paint again this afternoon or this evening or tomorrow or the next few days, you can lightly mist over this with water and put saran wrap over it. I've showed you also where you can use those inverted trays, you know, cafeteria trays. I just invert them over my palette there. A lot of different ways to set your paint. The thing is, you want to keep a moist environment. To keep your paint, you keep a moist environment. What's inside of this? How come they stay nice for years inside of this, even if you have a half a tube, because it's a moist environment on the inside and it's sealed off. So you got to figure a way to create a moist environment, seal it off, and you can save it, okay? So there you go. There's a fun little painting. We have some florals coming, and I want to start a series because so many of you have been writing me about the rocks that I've been doing lately in the westerns, asking me so many questions about it and stuff. Why you don't answer them? Ask them on the thing so I can answer them, in the comments. You just email me. That's okay. I think I'm going to do a series of short videos on painting on rocks and adding different kinds of textures, looks, and all that kind of stuff. You're doing it with the knife and the brush and half toning and reflected light, all that kind of stuff. It might be kind of fun for my landscape painters to boost up some of your skills that way. I've always talked about wanting to just do some skill series on that. So, and movement water too. I want to paint another moving water one with you guys. Lots of stuff, okay? So anyway, I have another one coming up. We'll have another video coming up. We usually like to leave at least one day in between. So I'll have another one though coming up right away. And we're doing some different flowers and stuff. And then I'll go right into the rocks and stuff, okay? All right. Thanks very much, guys. Don't forget to smash that like button down there. That really helps our videos a lot. If you just take a second and click like, that helps our videos, the distribution of them a lot. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel, okay? And I'll see you guys on the very next one in just one day. Okay, bye-bye.